Before we get into this, if you are in crisis right now, the number is 988. Call it, text it 24 hours a day. You can go to the website 988lifeline.org. It's free, it's confidential, and there are people there who can help. I want you to have some water and take breaks if you need to. Take care of yourself while we have this conversation. I want to talk to you about something that has lived in my body and in my family and in my community for a long time: depression. I was recording a whole different video and I got a strong ancestral push to make this one. A lot of us are going through it right now, and so this is a conversation we need to have. I was diagnosed with major depression over 30 years ago, and it's not something that just resolves itself. I still struggle sometimes, despite all the tools I have and the therapy I've been in. But despite struggling more in the last few months, I am in no way feeling like taking my own life or having thoughts about the end of my life. I just want to name that. And I want to name this, I want to name depression and shine light on it. And I don't share that to discourage anyone who might be struggling right now. I say it because I not only see you, but I am you, and you're not alone. I know what it feels like from the inside out, and I know what it looks like from the outside in people that I love. This video is for Black women and Black men, both. It's for the parents, the aunties, the uncles, and the people who are watching their children struggle and don't understand what they're seeing. We're going to talk about what depression actually is from the position of love and joy, not to bypass anything, but to inject some of the medicine along the way. We're going to talk about how it shows up differently in us, in Black folks, in our bodies, in our behaviors, and in our relationships. And we're going to talk about what the data says, what actually helps, and what resources exist right now. This is going to be real, and I hope that anyone who has been struggling, like I've struggled in the past, can find encouragement, clarity, or help. Stay with me to the end, and I'll share a resource guide you can download with everything we're going to talk about and even more. But before we get into it, if you're new here, I'm Barbara Ohuninifa. I'm a griot, an author, an ancestral strategist, and the founder of Beautiful, Powerful Love, a storytelling movement for the remembering, healing, and liberation of Black women at a crossroads. If that's your thing, subscribe, ring the bell, and let's get into it. First of all, I am not a mental health professional, and I'm not giving you medical advice. I am a Black woman who has survived depression my entire life. Let me start by telling you what depression is not. It's not weakness. It's not a failure of faith or the result of sin. It's not something that a good attitude or a better morning routine or enough gratitude journaling or copious amounts of prayer can fix. It's not something that only happens to people who are soft or who need to toughen up. Depression is a medical condition, a real one. It involves the brain, the body, the nervous system, and yes, the spirit. It changes how you think, how you feel, how you function, and how you experience time and life itself. Major depressive disorder is a mood disorder that causes persistent sadness, loss of interest in activities, symptoms that last basically the whole day, nearly every day, for at least 2 weeks, and it affects daily functioning. And for some of us, that those 2 weeks turn into 2 months, 2 years, or 2 decades. And here's something else important. The tools that are used to define, diagnose, and treat depression were built primarily without Black folks considered. Research on depression in African American women specifically has been scarce for decades, which means that our symptoms have been misread, our pain has been minimized, and we have been underdiagnosed and undertreated and sent home. That's a fact. So, part of what we're doing today is building our own language for what this feels like in us so that we can name it, seek help for it, advocate for ourselves or our family members, and stop calling it something that it isn't. And I also want to note that there's another form of depression that isn't as dramatic as major depression. It doesn't put you in the bed or make you unable to function like major depression episodes do. It just settles in like a permanent low ceiling, a flatness that you've carried so long you think is just your personality or just how you are. Back in my day, it was called dysthymia. Now they got a new name for it: persistent depressive disorder. That's the clinical language. And it's defined as a depressed mood that lasts for 2 years or more, sometimes much longer, as I said. But this is less severe than major depression, and it never fully lifts, though. Major depression usually comes in episodes where you kind of go into this pit, a valley, and eventually, sometimes it takes longer times than others, you come out. Dysthymia is always there. It never fully lifts. And many people with dysthymia don't know they have it. They think they're just being realistic or tired or just not the kind of person who gets to feel good and joyful. They've never known what it actually feels like to not be carrying that weight. So they have no reference point for what's missing. I know this one from the inside. After years after my diagnosis of major depression, I was further diagnosed with dysthymia. It was like a low grade melancholy that feels like a permeable barrier to joy. You know, like the sheer drapes that folks used to have, and I don't know, so maybe some folks still have them. The sheer drapes that go over the window. You can see outside, kinda, and some light comes through, sort of, but it's kind of muted and not clear. And you don't realize that the shears are there over your joy, over your experience of life. You just think that's how it is. For me personally, I was like, damn, why is everybody else so happy and carefree? And why is it so hard for me? Everybody don't see the world like this? And it turns out that there was something obscuring my experiences, again, of light and joy. And I also want to name anxiety here too, because depression and anxiety are not the same thing, but they are frequently companions. Anxiety is the nervous system stuck in forward, the hypervigilance, the racing thoughts, the physical tension, the sense that something bad is about to happen, even when nothing is wrong. Depression is often the nervous system stuck in shutdown, flatness, withdrawal, inability to feel. Many people carry both. I know I do. At the same time, sometimes they alternate, anxious and activated, then crashing into flatness. Sometimes they layer. The anxiety is what you see on the outside, but the depression is what's underneath it. Research consistently shows that the majority of people diagnosed with depression also experience significant anxiety symptoms. For Black women, especially, the anxiety often shows up first: the hypervigilance, the overworking, the inability to rest, while the depression lives quietly underneath it, undiagnosed and unnamed. So, if you've been told you have anxiety, but something still feels incomplete about that picture, it may be worth asking your doctor about depression too, and vice versa. Like I said, me, I got major depression, although it's been a long time since I had an episode. I'm thankful. The tools help. Dysthymia, I got that low riding ceiling that I have to support myself in lifting that up. Sometimes I realize I've just been kind of walking through life or moving through life, not fully feeling joy. And I'm like, oh yeah, that damn ceiling. Let me do the work I know to do to lift that up. And then the anxiety when I worry about all of it, because the depressive thoughts look for the next negative experience. I think the depression sometimes shows up to bring the nervous system down from heightened states of anxiety as a means to seek balance, even though it's misguided, because it's riding on top of racism, sexism, classism, and all the isms in this world that Black folks and Black women in particular have to carry. Whoo, child. Take a deep breath. I'm going to go sip some water. I hope you sip some too. I want to offer you a mirror right now. Again, not a diagnosis. I am not a doctor. I am not a mental health professional, and I am not giving you medical advice. But if you up for it, if you can, I want you to honestly ask yourself whether any of this sounds familiar in yourself or even in someone you love. Breathe deeply and slowly as you listen. Don't try to think of an answer. Just feel honestly. So, in your body, do you wake up feeling exhausted no matter how much you slept? Do you have aches and headaches and chest tightness or stomach problems that your primary care physician can't explain? Does your body feel heavy in a way that isn't about weight? Has your appetite disappeared, or are you eating as a way to feel something, anything? Just sit with those for a moment. Jot down the answers if you need to. In fact, I would recommend jotting down the answers because these become things that you can take in to your doctor, to a therapist, to a licensed mental health professional to talk through. Next, thinking about your mind. Is it hard to concentrate, remember things, finish a thought? Does everything feel like too much? Even small things that used to be easy? Do you find yourself replaying mistakes and old wounds or things you said years ago or things that people said to you years ago, kind of ruminating? Does the future feel like a flat gray wall with nothing behind it? Take a deep breath. Thinking about your emotions, are you numb more than you're sad? Do you find yourself crying and not knowing why, or wanting to cry and not being able to? Are you angry in ways that feel disproportionate, unrelated to what's currently happening, just outsized, and then later feel ashamed of that anger? Do you feel like a burden to the people who love you? Take a deep breath. Have you pulled back from people? Not necessarily dramatically, but slowly, quietly. Are you doing less of the things that used to bring you joy? Is it really hard to make decisions? Like decision fatigue is a real thing, even simple ones like what to eat or what to wear. Are you drinking more, like alcohol, scrolling more, working more, sexing more? Any of those things, not out of ambition, well, the working part, not out of ambition, but doing things in excess as something to escape, as something to use to escape. And the one that gets us most, especially Black women, are you functioning? You getting up, you going to work, you taking care of the kids, you doing what you got to do on your job, you showing up. Some of y'all showing up to church and you doing all the things for everybody, but you feel absolutely nothing on the inside. You just kind of going through the motion, showing up like you've been taught you're supposed to, because that's depression too, or at least it can be. That's why you want to write these things down. And if you're answering yes, and your body will tell you, as long as you don't deny it, when the next thing needs to be is to talk to a mental health professional. Function on the outside while being hollow is one of the most common presentations of depression in Black women. The world sees us functioning, but nobody sees the hollow. I've pulled all of the things in this section into a free download. So if you didn't catch all of those, it's all good. You can get the checklist and more resources and stuff. The link is in the description and the pinned comment. You can go on ahead and grab that before you forget. So let's talk about something that we've discussed on this channel before, the superwoman schema. It's a concept that researcher Dr. Cheryl Woods Giscome at the University of North Carolina developed. It names something that we all know, but we haven't always had clinical language for it. And it's the set of expectations that Black women carry to be strong, to suppress emotion, to put everyone else first, to resist vulnerability, to succeed no matter what resources are actually available to us. Her research, validated across studies with hundreds of Black women, found that this schema is directly linked to depressive symptoms, poor sleep, stress related eating, and physical inactivity, all the things that make a perfect storm to impact our health and well being. That strong Black woman shit that we've been praised for is making us sick and slowly killing us. I talk about every single one of these in my memoir before I even knew about this research. It's the things that I've experienced my whole life. 27% of Black women will experience depression in their lifetimes. That's more than 1 in 4 of us. And the way it most often shows up in us is not what you see in the commercials with the woman looking out the window while it rains and she's looking sad. It shows up as irritability that surprises you. You know, when your kid might get on your last nerve and you snap in a way that kind of shocks you and you feel really bad for it. The exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. You just stay tired. That numbness where your feelings used to be, you just kind of don't give a fuck. And a sense that you are just performing life. You going through the motions, you showing up the way everybody telling you you're supposed to show up, but you're not actually living. And then there's the physical symptoms of headaches and body pain and stomach and digestion issues, high blood pressure that live alongside those emotional experiences of flatness. And it could be a persistent feeling of worthlessness or emptiness that you keep working hard to override, but it's still there. And the reason we miss it or delay naming it or some diagnosis of it, well, research from 2024 confirms that Black women's depression symptoms frequently fall outside of what routine clinical screenings are designed to find, which means we often have to advocate harder for ourselves just to be seen. Whew, I am so thankful to my mama, Iba, Maxine. I give you thanks. May you rest in power. She made me go to a psychiatrist when I was home for the holidays from school in Atlanta when I was in college. I had just turned 20, like a couple of days before, or would be turning 20 in a few days, depending on my birthday's in December, child, so who knows. But I remember she made the appointment and she and my daddy drove me there. She walked me in. She waited for me, obviously. She after meeting with the doctor, it was my session, so she waited for me, they waited for me, and they advocated for me. Or let me say specifically, my mama advocated for me. And I left there with a clear diagnosis that that doctor didn't even have to deliberate very long. Deliberate like it was a court situation, but you get my point. It was major depressive disorder. Now, without my mama, I wouldn't have had the awareness of my own mental health issues or the energy to do anything about it. Now, mind you, though she was never diagnosed herself, she suffered with a lot of the same symptoms as well, some degree of depression as well. She read a lot and had been reading articles about mental health and depression, which is how she pretty much diagnosed me and took action. Ooh, child, Black women be knowing. And she knew her child. That first diagnosis was more than 30 years ago, and that has supported my journey and my understanding of myself. I went back to school when the break was over, back down to Atlanta from Chicago, and I was able to find help on campus with a counselor, you know, who worked with students on in the counseling office on campus. And then at a program which that counselor told me about and sent me to, a program at a nearby medical school, a medical school that was also a hospital. And they had, and I got treated by medical doctors who were done with medical school but still doing their residency before they were out in the world. So that means I had the one-on-one doctor that I saw who also had a supervisor and a panel of experienced practicing psychiatrist faculty, all at an incredibly reduced rate. So I had a team of people. And then I still saw my on campus counselor. And I mention this partially because these sometimes can be avenues where we can find help, where we can find something that's affordable for us to be able to navigate these things. Now, my on campus counselor, she was a Black woman. She understood me more or less. I mean, there's always some differences, but she understood my Black woman experience. And the addition of the psychiatrists were there because they were able to subscribe antidepressant medications, which had to be managed medically. A psychiatrist is able to write prescriptions, and they must see you periodically to manage your use of those medications. Most of your talk therapy is either going to be with a licensed therapist or a psychologist. A psychologist, a therapist, um, a mental health practitioner, they can't give medication. So psychiatrists medication, everyone else is around the talk and other modalities, and they have to work together. They don't usually meet together, but you get my point. You got two parts of that. But without the meds, I would not have been able to do the talk therapy. I probably would have flunked out, and I don't know if I'd be here now. Sometimes you need the medication to get over a hump so that you can actually have the energy and the clarity to talk and work through whatever's there. And again, I thank my mama and I thank all the mental health professionals that supported me back then. The depression didn't go away, and I didn't live happily ever after without it free and clear, but I understood what I was dealing with and I had resources to manage it. Now, I also have high blood pressure, malignant high blood pressure, meaning it is very difficult to control, even after all the surgeries I've had and the blood pressure medications that I'm on. And for a long time, I managed those as two separate things. My blood pressure with my cardiologist and nephrologist, the heart and kidney doctors, and my depression with my therapist or psychiatrist. But the research says they're not separate, they're actually in conversation with each other. More than half of Black women have hypertension, the highest rate in the world. And Black women with hypertension are significantly more likely to also have depression. It's not a coincidence, it's mechanical. Depression makes blood pressure harder to control. Blood, blood pressure or high blood pressure makes depression harder to treat. And the medications used to manage blood pressure can themselves affect your mood. Stress floods your body with cortisol, which damages your arteries and changes how your brain regulates mood. The medication that keeps your heart safe can affect your sleep and your libido and your energy. So if you have high blood pressure and you've been feeling what I've described in terms of depression, then the numbness, the exhaustion, the flatness, I need you to know that connection is real. It's documented, it's named, and both things deserve treatment at the same time. And oftentimes your cardiologist and your nephrologist, they're not even going to think about your emotional or mental health, let alone ask you about it and look at the connections and where things align. And your psychiatrist or your therapist may or may not, depending on how well aware they are, but you have to bring those two together and advocate for yourself as best you can, or bring a loved one or a friend or someone with you to some of those appointments to help advocate for you. For Black men, the research tells us something that should change how we talk about these things in our families and in our communities. Black men often experience depression without recognizing it as depression. Studies show that Black men in clinical interviews describe feelings of irritability, isolation, a sense of disconnection, withdrawal. And when researchers reflect those experiences back as symptoms of depression, Black men are surprised. Because depression in the cultural script that we've all been handed is supposed to look like sadness. Again, like the lady looking out the window with the rain coming down on the window and she's looking sad. But because that's not our experience, we don't see that that's also us. And a lot of Black men have been taught in every possible way that sadness is just not available to them. Ain't nobody got time for them to be sad. So it comes out sideways as anger, as emotional distance, as working too much or too little, as drinking too much or smoking too much weed or disappearing into something, anything that doesn't require feeling, numbing out. The physical symptoms that they have, chronic pain, fatigue, hypertension, it all gets treated without anyone asking them about the emotional landscape underneath it. And when Black men do show up to a mental health provider, research shows that providers have historically been more likely to diagnose them with schizophrenia than depression. Sit with that for a second. The same symptoms that would read as depression in a white man are read as something more dangerous, more pathological in a Black man. We already know that that is racism operating inside the clinical setting. And there's also this painful paradox that research has uncovered. Black men face higher rates of discrimination and depression even as their income and education rise. The higher a Black man climbs, the more isolated, the more surveilled, the more targeted he often becomes. The usual protective factors of upward mobility don't work the same way for Black men. The stress doesn't decrease. In many cases, it compounds. And when I say it doesn't work the same way for Black men, I'm talking about the same way as it does for white men. Because Black women have their own stress, but we're talking about Black men right now. Now, these aren't my stories to tell, but I have known many Black men, friends, relatives, classmates, co workers, community members who all demonstrate these symptoms, all of these symptoms, but less than a handful who understand what it is and have the support they need and deserve. We got to change our language around depression and mental health. Now, I need you to stay with me for this section, especially if you are a parent, a grandparent, an auntie, a teacher, a coach, anyone who has a child or children in their lives, because the kids ain't okay. From 2007 to 2020, this is even before COVID, the suicide rate among Black children ages 10 to 17 rose 144%. 144%. That's not a blip, that's a crisis. And it's moving faster in our community than any other racial group. Black children between the ages of 5 and 12 are already twice as likely to die by suicide as white children the same age. 5 to 12 years old, the babies. Between 2003 and 2017, suicide rates rose in Black youth, especially amongst Black girls, whose rate of increase was more than twice that of Black boys in the same time period. I've seen this as one of my daughter's friends in middle school. This was years ago. She's grown now. But one of her friends in middle school took her own life. A beautiful Black girl who lived outside of the school district, so she wasn't nearby and we didn't know her family well. We had only been in the state for a year, but it was devastating. I nearly experienced this as a youth myself. Though I was finally diagnosed when I was just barely 20, I'd struggled with depression my whole life. And I had attempted to take my own life at least 3 times in my youth. Here's what it looks like before it becomes a crisis. And here's what to watch for in a child or in a teenager: withdrawal from friends and activities that they used to love, a drop in grades or school performance that came on without a clear academic reason, changes in sleep or sleeping too much or barely sleeping at all, increased irritability, rage, or emotional volatility, talking about being a burden, talking about not mattering, talking about the world being better without them, even if it sounds like venting, even if they take it back, giving away things that they used to care about, or a sudden calm after a period of distress. Sometimes this means a decision has been made. Don't dismiss these things. Don't tell them to pray harder. Don't tell them they don't have anything to be depressed about. Don't compare their experiences to your childhood. They are their own people with their own experiences in a world that is very different than any of us grew up in. Listen to them, believe them, get them help. I've put some of the other resources in the description as well and in the guide that you can download. Now, in terms of Black LGBTQ plus youth, I don't have a personal story to bring here, but the data speaks, and I'm going to share it clearly. Black, transgender, and non binary young people report the highest rates of suicide of any group in this conversation. 1 in 5 Black LGBTQ plus youth has been physically threatened or harmed because of their sexual orientation. 51% felt persistently sad or hopeless. 35% seriously considered attempting suicide. If you have a Black LGBTQ plus child in your life, and statistically someone watching this does, these are not abstract statistics. The research from Alfie Breland Noble And the Acoma Project is clear. Black young people of all gender identities and sexual orientation need culturally specific, affirming mental health support. Full stop, period with a T. I see how full LGBTQ plus adults struggle, and my heart goes out to the youth who don't have the support or the language to even ask for support. Be there for them. Be the adult that supports them and shows them that they are worthy and gets them the mental health affirming care that they deserve. I want to be honest about why we Black folks often don't get help because the conversation usually stops at stigma, and I think that's not the whole truth. Yes, stigma is real. Research shows that more than 80% of Black Americans are very concerned about the stigma associated with mental illness. 63% of us believe a mental health condition is a sign of personal weakness, and that belief is killing us. My mama proved that it's not everybody all the time. It was 1991, and my mama gave no fucks about a stigma when it came to saving her child's life. But the stigma is only one layer. Religion is also a barrier. And I want to say something carefully here because I am a spiritual woman. I believe in the power of prayer and ancestral guidance. Clearly, if you've been following me and reading my book, you know that this is true. But I also know that some religious communities, particularly some Christian traditions, have taught Black people that depression is a spiritual problem with a purely spiritual solution. That if you pray hard enough, believe hard enough, confess enough, praise enough, the darkness will lift. And when it doesn't lift, that same framework teaches you that your faith wasn't strong enough. That's a form of harm. Not because prayer isn't powerful, it can be, but because it's been used to prevent people from accessing medical care that they needed. You can pray for guidance towards the right therapist. You can pray while you take your medication. You can pray that the medication is effective for you, works quickly, and minimizes or eliminates side effects. These are ways you can use your prayer in combination with actually getting treatment. Spirituality and medical treatment are not opposites, but prayer alone is not a treatment plan for clinical depression any more than it is for diabetes. Now, I'm not here to be your pastor or your priest, but if your religious community is telling you that seeking mental health support means your faith is weak or that is demonic, that is a barrier to your well being and the joy that is your birthright as a child of God. And then there's the system itself as a barrier. Black patients are 33% less likely to receive patient-centered communications from their physician compared to white patients. This means that the people who are supposed to help us are already less engaged with us when we show up. Only 2% of psychiatrists and 4% of psychologists in America are Black. So when you go looking for someone who understands what your life actually feels like, who doesn't require you to educate them about racism, or convince them that racism exists before you can even talk to them about your depression, the chances of finding that person are slim by design. And then there's cost, insurance, co-pays, time off work. The whole infrastructure of mental health care in this country was not built for working Black families. That's a policy problem, but it's also a real barrier for real people who are just trying to live right now. Now, we've talked about why people don't get help, but I want to come back to something else that we talked about earlier. Well, I mentioned it earlier. July is BB Moore Campbell National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. You may have also seen it called the BIPOC Mental Health Month, but I need you to know her name, BB Moore Campbell. She was a Black woman, an author, a teacher, a journalist, an advocate who co founded one of the first NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness chapters built specifically for communities of color. And she spent years fighting to make this a national conversation. She died in 2006 before Congress officially recognized the month in 2008, something she had been advocating for. Her name belongs on it. And the fact that it keeps getting dropped, quietly replaced with a more generic label, is itself a demonstration of exactly what some of our issues are when it comes to our mental health and Black people in this country. What Black women build, what Black women name, what Black women fight for has a way of getting separated from the Black woman who created it. And it's not an accident. and it gets separated from the people who need it most. Also, not an accident. So, I say this to give honor and give respect to our ancestor, B.B. Moore Campbell. We thank you for your diligence. We thank you for your advocacy. We thank you for lighting the path so that many of us could have the help, the resources, and the understanding that we need. We give thanks. Now, in terms of what works, what helps us, what truly are our avenues, I won't say to heal depression because I don't know if healing it completely is a thing, but we can certainly live full lives. And I'm a testament to that because again, I was diagnosed over 30 years ago and I'm still here with two forms of depression and anxiety. So all the things we've been talking about, I got all of them. You can do this. So first of all, and I've told you my story, talk therapy, but it needs to be culturally responsive. Therapy works. Culturally adapted therapy works even better. Research across 76 studies found that culturally adapted mental health interventions produce measurably stronger outcomes than non adapted ones. So, what that means is that you got a right to a therapist who doesn't require you to understand blackness before they can help you. You have a right to a therapist who validates your experiences of racism, discrimination, and historical traumas as real stressors and not just distorted thinking. Then there's medication, a real conversation, not a shame conversation. So let me normalize something. As I talked about, again, I've been on medication before, multiple different times if I needed it. Medication for depression is not a character flaw. It's not a sign of weakness. It is, for many people, a necessary and effective part of treatment. It's a lifeline, particularly for moderate to severe depression. And that was my case on more than one occasion. Now, I ain't like the side effects, but I couldn't deny that they helped me crawl out of a pit of a depressive mood or a depressive episode. It's more than a mood. And pit is the only way I can describe it, a deep, dark pit. And it feels like the light is so far away, you don't know if you can ever reach it. The medication brings that light closer to you and gives you the strength to call out. They'll be in the guide for you to look deeper into. I'll have some names of sample drugs that I just did research and found. But all of this is so that you can take this information, you can take what you have noticed about yourself and take that into a mental health professional and your doctor to figure it all out. But at least you go in knowing some things. And here's what I want you to know: medication is not a lifetime commitment for everyone. For some people, it's the bridge that makes therapy possible. I told you that's what it was for me. For others, it's longer term support. And that decision should be made between you and your doctor, a doctor who knows your full history, including other medications and health conditions, but not alone and not under pressure to either take it or not take it. If medication doesn't work or causes side effects that you can't tolerate, that's information, not failure. There are a lot of options, and finding the right option or the right dosage or the right approach is worth it. So the goal for you is to A, stay alive, and B, have a positive quality of life, whatever that means. And if medication is part of the mix to do that, then damn it, do it. And then there are a lot of nutrients, herbs, supplements, things that have evidence. Now, none of these are a replacement for treatment of clinical depression. They don't replace therapy and they don't replace medication. And sometimes you can't even take some of these with medication, but they are legitimate, evidence based support as part of a holistic approach. Talk to your doctor before you add anything in if you're on medication, because again, some of the supplements interact. Now, these I am at one point or another have been or am using all of these because I know as a person who has been diagnosed with depression over 30 years ago, who has dysthymia, who's again the depression, major depression diagnosis, I have to support my mental health in all the ways possible. So, vitamin D, deficiency in vitamin D is associated with depression. Some doctors say that Black folks are more likely to be deficient because melanin reduces the skin's ability to synthesize vitamin D from sunlight. So, you need to get your levels checked, and it's a simple blood test. But I also want to flip how they talk about that. Melanin reduces the skin's ability to synthesize vitamin D from sunlight, which flipping that, we come from a region of the world or regions from in the world near the equator where we always had some pretty abundant amount of sunlight. So we didn't need to have thinner, lighter skin to absorb more sunlight because we were always in sunlight. So it's not that the melanin is reducing the skin's ability, it's that we had exactly for what we need for where we were. I'm just saying. Change how we look at things, decolonizing the mind. Moving on. Omega 3 fatty acids, especially EPA and DHA, that's found in fish oil. A lot of studies show that there's a meaningful reduction in depressive symptoms, especially from people who don't get enough from diet. And it's also anti-inflammatory. Child, I'll be trying to get as much omega-3 fatty acids as I can, both taking it, eating it, all the things that I can do because I know I need it for my mental health and I need it for my blood pressure and I need it for all these other health conditions that I'm managing that are all inflammation based. Magnesium. Now, magnesium is involved in over 300 biochemical reactions in the body, including those that regulate mood. And a lot of people are deficient. There are forms that are well tolerated, crosses the blood-brain barrier. It's in the guide. We're gonna get you. You can find out more about that in the guide. And then there's B vitamins, especially B12 and folate. Deficiencies in these is directly associated with depression and cognitive symptoms, particularly relevant for anyone with certain blood pressure medications. It depletes B12. Again, I'm on all of these, honey. And then there's iron. Iron deficiency, anemia, produces symptoms that overlap significantly with depression, fatigue, cognitive fog, inability to feel pleasure. Now, think about as a woman at that time of the month, those iron levels drop because you're bleeding. You're already irritable because there's hormone shifts and things that are happening. You may already feel depressed, down, all of these same things. And on top of which, it gets amplified because your iron drops as well. On top of which, you might actually have clinical depression that's going to be there regardless of where your hormones are and where your iron level is. Child, you got to stay on top of all the things. And then there's St. John's wort, which has evidence to help with mild depression, but it does definitely interact with a lot of medications, including antidepressants, birth control, and blood thinners. So you definitely need to be checking with a medical doctor. Any of these, you need to check with your doctor to make sure and understand what interacts. Don't just go to Dr. GPT to figure it out. And then there's ashwagandha. It's an adaptogen with good evidence for anxiety and stress-related depression symptoms. I've taken it. It's been great. Another one is SAMe, and I'm not even going to try to say the full clinical name for that, but the body produces this naturally, and clinical trials has shown it to be effective for mild to moderate depression. And it actually can be an add-on when you're using antidepressants and they're not fully working. The idea is to start low, but not too much, because starting at a high dose too fast can cause some stomach upset. And it's not for anyone with bipolar disorder. Again, talk to your doctor, talk to your naturopath before you start dosing yourself. But these are some of the things that you can start to incorporate into your diet, into your routine to support yourself, as well as the talk therapy and then medications. And then there's this category of remedies that are called flower essences. And they're more vibrational in nature. And it's made from the, it's going to sound a little woo woo, but oh my God, I have used these. I got some on order right now because they work. Vibrational remedies that are made from the energetic imprint of flowers in water. They're not herbal medicine and it's not aromatherapy. Aromatherapy uses the flowers and it's about the scent and essential oil. Herbal medicine is about specific medicinal herbs and combining them and formulating them in different ways that work actually on your biology. Flower essences work on the emotional and soul level rather than biochemically. So they don't interact with any medications. Child, I have used these and have felt my mood and my well-being uplift. Now, I'll have it in the guide, but I use a particular Flower Essence Society brand. They're more affordable than Bach, which was the original scientist who formulated them. Now, I don't have a relationship with them, but I'm just saying that they're affordable and they work, and they worked for my depression and anxiety. And a couple of different ones. Now, this first one I haven't used, but I'm looking forward to trying it out. Borage, which is about heaviness of heart and discouragement and grief. And that is specifically for depression and heaviness and brings a lightness back to the chest. And child, somebody didn't had 3 open heart surgeries, and then I got titanium plates and Dacron and all of this stuff in my chest helping keep me alive. I need some lightness of chest. And then there's Star of Bethlehem, which is specifically for depression and grief. And that's grief and depression that's rooted in trauma or shock, or it can be recent or old. And it's a widely used flower essence for PTSD and unresolved loss. And the Flower Essence Society, they have a multi-essence formula called HOPE. And HOPE is an acronym for something. But this formula, again, I've used this, is a good baseline remedy for a lot of different states of depression. And it's a good starting point if you're new to flower essences and you're not sure which single essence fits. And another one that they have that I've used with great success is called Magenta Self Healer. And this helps with feeling depleted and depressed after a serious illness, surgery, or physical trauma. Now, if y'all have seen any of my other videos or read my books, you already know serious illness, surgery, and physical trauma got lots of that. So if your body has been through something major and your spirit hasn't fully come back yet, this one might help you. And then there's moving on from the flower essences, there's light therapy. Seasonal depression or seasonal affective disorder is a real diagnosis that disproportionately affects people who live in northern cities or spend limited time outdoors. I don't know, folks who, maybe were originally sun people who lived in the sun and now we indoors in these northern places who that don't get a lot of sun. I don't know, maybe like Seattle. But a full spectrum light, actually this can be applied anywhere. I noticed my depression before I even, well, once I knew what depression was, but I noticed it would come on a lot stronger in the fall and into the winter. As you can see, as I was just talking about, my mother had me go to that psychiatrist. It was winter break. I was home. It was December. So I was in the thick of it at that time. And so a full spectrum light therapy lamp used for about 20 to 30 minutes in the morning has strong clinical evidence. Now, it's not a UV tanning light, it's a specific 10,000 lux light that's designed to regulate your circadian rhythm and serotonin production. You can usually get one from $30 to $60, and it works for a lot of people within a few days to a few weeks. So even if your depression is not seasonal, light exposure matters. So even if you can get outside in the morning if it's possible. And the thing is, if you are in a depressive episode, getting up and out is the hardest thing to do. So that's why maybe flipping the switch and being able to turn this light on and passively receive it is the best formula for you. And then there's exercise. Now, child, I know the last thing a depressed person wants to hear is that exercise will help. But the data is unambiguous, and I'm reminding myself this as I'm telling you. Exercise, specifically aerobic exercise, 3 to 5 times a week, produces changes in the brain that are measurable and clinically significant for mild to moderate depression. And it's not because you need to lose weight, let go of that shit. It's because your brain needs the biochemistry that movement produces. Walking counts. Dancing especially counts. I think dancing is one of the best forms because it brings joy into it. It brings rhythm into it. It brings sometimes nostalgia into it if it's a song that really made you feel good at some point in your life. Dancing is strong. Walking is accessible. Swimming counts, but usually a little less accessible, especially for Black folks. But the reality is the bar is a lot lower than the fitness industry will want you to think. You ain't got to get to the gym. You don't have to do any particular set of reps. You just got to move your body. And then there's nature. Now, this, I'm not being soft when I say that. Time in nature, specifically green spaces near water, measurably reduces cortisol, decreases blood pressure. Again, reminding myself this, improves mood. Researchers on what Japanese scientists call forest bathing shows measurable effects on stress hormones from as little as 20 minutes in the trees. So going for a little hike. Now the reality is Black women and Black men have historically been excluded from natural spaces in this country. Parks, trails, swimming pools, through policy, through violence. And our disconnection from nature is not incidental, but I need you to reclaim that. Stop being scared and stop being worried about your hair getting messed up. Wrap that shit up and go for a walk, go for a swim, dance, move. Again, I'm talking to myself too, sis. And then there's water. Now, we talked about water in nature, but sometimes it's just the simple water of taking a shower. You can alternate between warm and cold water to kind of activate the nervous system. It shifts something physiological within you. That's not a cure, but it can be a real tool for interrupting that freeze state that depression produces in the body. It's for interrupting and bringing you at least a little bit up from that bottom of the pit. Cold water exposure, even briefly, triggers a relief of the cortisol and the stress hormones. It's biology, it's not magic. So cold showers, cold water, and drinking cold water, it all helps. Now, Dr. Thelma Bryant's liberatory psychology framework makes explicit what we've always known, what our ancestors have always known, that healing happens in community, not just the therapy room, but in circle, in storytelling, in the act of being witnessed by people who know what your life actually costs. Your ancestral lineage is a resource. The people who came before you survived things that would have ended anybody else. That survival is in your body. Connect to it through story, through ritual, through ancestral inquiry. Try to find out, understand who your people are. Understand what they've been through. How did they navigate it? What were some of the favorite things that they did? Great grandma, grandmama did, mama, grandmama and them did. What did they do that they seemed to enjoy that kept them at a baseline? I guarantee you it's some ancestral medicine in that. And for many of us, it's a foundation that really can help us to move forward, that can help us to heal. And again, everything I just covered, the therapy, the medication categories, the supplements, flower essences, all of it and more, because it was too much to cover in the video, is laid out clearly in that guide. So you don't have to remember it all right now. The link is in the description. If someone you love is struggling, ask them directly. The research is clear. Asking someone if they're thinking about suicide does not plant the idea, it opens the door. Ask, listen, stay, help them get help. And again, all these resources I just named are in the guide too. You never know whose life might be in need of that. Download the guide, keep it, pass it along, have it nearby so you can assist anybody in your family or in your life that might need it. Before we close, I want to offer you something that's not a meditation where you got to feel something that you don't feel like feeling, or affirmation that you got to try to believe something that your brain won't let you believe. But just three options depending on where you are. And you can do one, or you can try all of them, or just do whatever you feel right now in this moment. If you can barely move, and I've been there in the pit of a depression, I just want you to drink a glass of water. Drink it slowly. A body that has been or is in a depression is often dehydrated and doesn't even know it. And it's not metaphorical. It's real. And water is what your ancestors took their grief to, and it receives everything. So drink it slowly and let that be enough for today. If you have a little bit more juice in you, or next day or the next week, you can try washing your hands and your face. Let the water run, and as it runs, say out loud or just in your mind, I'm washing away what is not mine to carry today. And you wash your hands and your face with it. And then drink a glass of water. And if you have a little energy still, you can speak life into yourself over the water. Nothing elaborate. You could just say, may this water help me feel better. May this water quench everything that's within me. Or you could just use words, love. You don't have to say, I love me if that's too far from you. Just the word love, speak it into the water and drink it. And then notice that you're still here. If you're ready or able to go a little further, and again, maybe not today, maybe this is a stretch goal for tomorrow or for next week. Take a shower. Start the shower warm. And as you soap up and do all your things, if you need to, let yourself cry. Water has always received our grief. It's there for us. It was there for our ancestors. It's there for us. Let it rinse over your entire body. And then at the end of that shower, the last 30 seconds or however long, you don't have to time it, turn that warm shower to cool water and let the cool water rinse over your body. And when you get out, say one true thing about yourself out loud. Not about what you've accomplished, but about who you are, even if it feels like a lie right now, and almost especially if it feels like a lie right now. Because telling yourself that it's not true about you is probably the lie. Depression lies to us. So tell yourself something beautiful about who you are, something good about who you are, one thing, and let that sit with you. And that's it. All three of those are medicines. All three count. And you don't have to earn the deeper practice. You don't have to feel guilty about just doing the simpler one of drinking the water. You just have to still be here. And you are. And all these options and more to choose from are in that guide. Get it printed for yourself or a loved one who is struggling. Let there be fewer barriers to getting better. If it's printed, you could just look and see what do I have energy for today? That loved one can just look at it and say, maybe I can do this. And if you got through this whole video, that matters. You looked at something that was real. And that takes more than what a lot of people realize. And I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful that you're here. I'm thankful that you made it this far. And I'm not talking about this far in the video. I'm talking about this far in life because I know how hard it is and I know how hard it's been. So this video covered a lot of ground. I know. If you got through it and again, got through all of it or some of it, most of it, or you skipped around with the chapters, do whatever you got to do to get to what you need to get to. You can always bookmark it and come back to it. I want you to get this free guide. I think I'm titled it because I always got to get something titled. That's what I feel. You ain't just tired. A survivor's guide to depression and healing in the Black community. And I call it a survivor's guide because, again, I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist. I am a survivor. 30 plus years, I might as well just call it a lifetime. I was diagnosed 30 years ago, as I've said multiple times. But I know for a fact, going all the way back to earliest memories at 4 and 5 years old, depression was always there. So that guide has everything in it. And I say you ain't just tired because shit, now I still be feeling tired all the time now. Now, now I got all the blood pressure medications and all the other things working out. But tired was always there, rather even before all these medical conditions, the physical medical conditions came up. So get the guide, find a therapist, find a counselor, do some work to support yourself or to support your child or support a loved one. And again, I built that guide really like all the tools that I built because when I'm at my bottom, when I'm in that pit of depression, or when that ceiling of dysthymia is lowering on me, I need something that I can hold that makes it easier for me to ascend, that makes it easier for me to get up out that pit and lift that ceiling up. I can't have to make decisions and think about it and figure it out along the way. I got to have something already where I can just follow the path. And that's the foundation of this guide that's free that you can download and any other resources that I've created. Again, the link's in the description. And with that, I thank you for staying with me, for allowing me to share my story, for allowing me to be witnessed. Because again, if you struggle and suffer from depression, I not only see you, I am you. And so I'm thankful that you see me and that I get to share my story and that I'm still here to share my story. It means more to me than you can know. And with that, again, subscribe if you haven't already. Send this to somebody in your life who may need it, who might need to learn more about Black mental health, depression, anxiety in particular. You don't have to explain the video, just send them a link. That'll be enough. And I just want you to know you are loved, you are lovable, and you are loving. You are worthy of love and all the sweetness and joy that life has to offer. It is your birthright. And as always, take good care of you. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.